Hello and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We are your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of a multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood and gut issues.
While busyness, addictive doing, people-pleasing and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself and step into the life of your dreams.
Let's dive in.
Hello everybody, it's Philly here. I'm doing a solo episode. Chris is in the background preparing for our Ending Body Burnout Method group workshop tonight. So I said, I got it babe, I'll take this podcast. So today I'm going to take you through a Connect the Dots episode. I looked back at when we last did one of these and I think it was back in June, so it's been quite a few months since we've released a Connect the Dots episode. These ones are really cool because we take a listener's case and put our detective hats on to be able to connect the dots of their health symptoms, identify potential body-mind root causes, and suggest best lab tests to confirm imbalances and really look at deeper root causes at a metaphysical level. So that's what I'm going to do today. In today's episode, I'm digging into a complex case around chronic gut issues and fatigue. And I just want to say thank you to our listener, Marcy, for sending in your case and letting us investigate this podcast on the show today. If you have listened to a Connect the Dots, or if you really like this episode and you would like your own case reviewed on our poddy, just go down to the show notes and you can click the application form link to send us your case. Or if you're like, oh, I like the way that these guys look at body systems and symptoms and like how it started and deeper metaphysical causes, and you actually want guidance, real life guidance to connect the dots with us, you can also go down to the show notes and I've put a link there to a Connect the Dots initial consult. That's the first step to working with us inside our practice. We do have our 6-month Ending Body Burnout Method program. The doors are now closed to that. So when doors are closed, we do open up if we have space in the calendar for people to book in for that very first step, the Connect the Dots initial consult. So if you would like me to help you, then jump on down and see what sessions are available for that. Okay, so before I jump into today's case, I just want to make it really explicit that this is for informational, educational purposes only, especially for Marcy, who is sent in her case, and for anyone else listening that has similar symptoms, onset and patterns as the listener. This does not replace any official consult with us or your medical doctor or practitioner. So what we discussed today isn't coming from a place of advice giving. As a disclaimer, this is not health advice or medical advice. It would be really irresponsible for me to actually advise you to do anything without actually sitting down with you and having a consultation or coaching session with you to really uncover what's going on. So when listeners send in these in their case, there's often a lot of missing pieces, and I'm going to highlight those missing pieces as well, but please don't take this episode as this is what's wrong with you, do this. These Connect the Dots episodes are really nice and coming from a place of, hey, here's a new perspective for this conditional combo of symptoms. And what I do in this episode and putting my detective hat on is really looking at those symptoms and the case history from a very specific holistic approach, in the same way that we would work with our real life clients inside our Ending Body Burnout Method. Okay, So let's dive into today's case. The biggest body burnout symptom this listener is struggling with is digestion issues. She specifically noted nausea and constipation as really big symptoms that are plaguing her, and also reported fatigue and brain fog as well. So I always like to get an indication of when symptoms started, what was happening around the time, and what the person has tried so far. So here is what the listener has said. So she said, in terms of onset, she's had these symptoms for as long as she can remember. That's very vague information, by the way. I find that when I have a client in front of me, whether it's via Zoom or in person in our clinic, that a lot of the times people say, oh, I've had this symptom forever, for as long as I can remember. But when I actually ask some really specific questions like, oh, okay, do you mean like you were born with it, or your parents used to say that you had this issue as a baby, or was it more like this started showing up later on in life as a kid or teenager or early adult? The responses from clients are all different. Some will say, yeah, actually, my mum said I was constipated even as a baby, whereas other people will be like, oh, no, I remember I was probably about 12 when I started noticing I wasn't going to the toilet every day or experiencing nausea, whatever that is. So that piece of information is going to be really important. I don't have that. If it was baby ever since I can remember, then my brain would go to different things in terms of, oh, this might be what's going on at a physical or a metaphysical level. But I'm going to just assume that maybe it wasn't as a baby. Maybe this person wasn't born with fatigue and brain fog and nausea, and maybe she was a constipated baby. I'm not sure. But those other symptoms generally show up later on in life. Now, this listener has reported what was leading up to the health issues. I'm always curious around what's going on, what happened when these health issues started flaring up. And she said, no exact moment comes to mind, but I grew up with an alcoholic father, so my home life was always super tense and uneasy. Now, this key information, this is key information, and I will be digging into this later on in the podcast, as growing up in a tense environment has a direct link to gut health. So when we get to the metaphysical side of what might be going on at a root cause level, I'm going to circle back to that. But this is super key, that this person grew up in an environment where it was tense, stressful, highly likely in some way felt unsafe, uncertain, unstable. That's going to do things to the nervous system and to the body. Okay, now in terms of treatment, this listener reported that she'd seen a dietitian as a teenager, had sensitivity tests which showed milk intolerance. She's seen several different naturopaths. She's had blood tests. Nothing alarming ever comes up. She's had a hormone saliva test 8 years ago, and she doesn't think anything was found in that one. She's had a stool test analysis which detected H. pylori, which was treated by mastic gum or with mastic gum and celery juice. She was diagnosed with MTHFR gene mutation. She said that just a month ago she did another intolerance test, and only the milk showed up as an issue from a food perspective, nothing else. She said she's tried all sorts of supplements, not much improvement. She's seen doctors. She had 2 endoscopies as a teenager. Nothing was found. She's done functional medicine. She was diagnosed with SIBO, did a round of antibiotics. Not sure if she still has it or not. And she's also done an OAT or an organic acid test, which showed up candida, which she treated, and some other markers that she can't remember now. Possibly there were heavy metals or mold going on. She's also tried parasite cleansers, and she said, I'm sure I've forgotten so many other things, but brain fog is another big thing for me. Okay, so this lady has clearly been trying to get to the bottom, mind the pun, of her health issues for sure. She obviously is not happy and not okay with the chronic health issues. And I have a feeling that she has a belief, or at least did, that she is able to heal. She's able to get to the root, even if things haven't yet resolved yet, because she's tried a lot of things. It doesn't sound like this is a woman who has tried a couple of things. They didn't work. So therefore she will be like, oh, well, this must be my lot in life. It sounds like she is constantly trying to get to the bottom of it. In terms of the timeline of those treatments, I'm not really sure if that was in chronological order, but at the very least, I know that she did a food intolerance test a month ago. So she's obviously still trying to find answers and solutions. And my heart goes out to you, my love. I do not know you personally. I haven't met you. I know that you have been in our Facebook group and all that sort of stuff, but it is tough. Like, it's super, super tough, especially if you feel like this is something that has been going on for ages, for as long as you can remember. Okay. So our approach when it comes to ending body burnout, or to be able to discover, first of all, what is causing the body to feel burnt out in the first place, is looking at the causes of body burnout. And they'll always fall in the camps of physical inflammation and metaphysical inflammation. So physical inflammation is things like the food that you're eating, inflammatory foods, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, environmental toxins, might be like things to do with lifestyle as well. So maybe like poor sleep hygiene. And then if you've got imbalances in the bodies, infections, heavy metals stuck in fat tissues, they're what we would consider a physical inflammatory. Then you've got metaphysical inflammatories, and they're the things that you can't quite see, but they're still causing inflammation in the body in the same way that a physical inflammatory affects the body. So metaphysical inflammation is really looking at what's happening below the surface, what's happening inside your unconscious mind, what's happening with your neural pathways, your nervous system, your brain. These are still parts of the physical body, but the things that get stuck, we call them unconscious baggage. And I'll talk more about what that is and unpack that in reference to this case shortly. But a lot of these things can become like unconscious baggage in your body, in your unconscious mind, in your nervous system, which puts your body into a state of fight and flight or freeze and stress and overwhelm, and can literally cause all the same physiological inflammatory responses that you might get when you smell, cleaning products down the cleaning aisle. Now, the thing is, so there's physical and metaphysical. It's never one or the other. It's one and the other, which is probably why this dear woman hasn't resolved her health issues yet, as the things she has tried so far have been very heavy on identifying and healing physical inflammatories. So let's dig into both of these causes, which is our holistic ending body burnout method approach. By the way, we did just recently close doors. It was a beautiful launch. We welcomed in, I think, 31 new wonderful clients, and I'm so excited for where they will be in the next 6 months. If you missed out this time, or maybe the timing wasn't right, just scroll down to the show notes and there will be a link for you to be able to join the waitlist to the Ending Body Burnout Method. Benefit of that is that you'll get first dibs in joining, which means that you get to have your first one-on-one a lot sooner rather than waiting a few weeks or a month. And also people in our wait list also get access to exclusive early bird bonuses. We're not sure what they'll look like for 2025, but they generally are to the value of $500. Okay, let's talk about the physical side of things. So you can't have symptoms without there being some sort of body system imbalance or burnout. So this lady with her constipation, nausea, brain fog, fatigue, there is something physical going on. So let's look at the body systems first. In our practice, we look at 3 core body systems: the neuroendocrine system, the gastrointestinal system, and the detoxification system. So in terms of the GI system or the gut, Let's dig into that first, because it looks like she's already done a lot of work in this area. So these digestive issues that she's experiencing, well, it makes sense. It makes sense that the practitioners, the people that she's seen in the past, the doctors have looked into the gut, because that's where she's getting the symptoms from. And it sounds like she has tested and tried to treat many of the areas of the gut already. So she's done a breath test for SIBO, she's taken the antibiotics, she's done stool test, treated parasites, H. pylori, candida. She's had scopes. There's been a lot of testing around the gut, and it looks like there's also been some things that have shown up that could be affecting her gut health. So around the gut testing, I'd be really curious if these things have been retested. In fact, she said that SIBO hasn't been retested, so she just did the antibiotics and she's not sure if it's still there. With the SIBO side of things, there is a relapse rate of 50%, which is really high and really disheartening if you have had SIBO and you've done, whether it's antimicrobials, antibiotics, the elemental diet, and that SIBO has flared up. Now, the biggest reason why SIBO flares up or isn't completely eliminated and resolved is because underlying causes that cause the SIBO to occur in the first place haven't been detected, treated, or resolved. So that's just one little gold nugget that I'll throw out there. Is the SIBO still there? If it's flared back again, were the underlying causes of SIBO looked at, treated, supported? With the other pathogens, so the H. pylori, parasites, candida, I'd be curious to see if these have been retested via stool samples or organic acid urine tests. If she is still symptomatic, then I always think about, well, is that because the pathogens are still there, or have they gone and now but the symptoms haven't changed, which then will signify that, well, there's something else going on. So from a physical point of view, maybe digestive organs aren't working so well. Maybe there's chemical sensitivities like histamine. Maybe it's actually now less a gut issue and more a neural pathway issue, where the brain gets really clever at tagging things as dangerous that aren't actually dangerous. It's really common with food sensitivities, even something like milk intolerance. Or if the pathogens are still present, why is the body not responding to the protocol? So these are the type of questions I would be thinking about if I had this woman in front of me having a connect the dots, and these are the type of questions that I would be asking. A couple of other things too. So this lady mentioned she did a stool test. Now, there wasn't a lot of information around what type of test that is. Your standard GP can run stool tests, and they generally look at major parasites and bacterial pathogens, including H. pylori and some parasites. So if it was just a standard GP test, then there's going to be missing information. Something like a comprehensive functional stool test can not only look at those pathogens, but it can also look at a bunch of neutral bacteria, neutral yeast microbes that if they overgrow, they can be inflammatory. A more comprehensive stool test can also identify if there's leaky gut or digestive organ dysfunction or inflammation. So there may be some missing pieces there of some really key and important parts of the gut that if they're still out of whack, then that might be why this woman is still symptomatic. Something I think about too with nausea is the gallbladder. So if someone's experiencing a lot of nausea, has the gallbladder been scanned? Now, this is something that you can actually do with your GP, and they get a referral and you can get scanned, and understanding if there's stones or sludgy bile can impact nausea and gut health. This woman also mentioned she'd done a couple of food intolerance tests. So what I want to say about that is they aren't super accurate, and also they aren't that helpful unless you want to eat restrictive for the rest of your life. Very rare that I will prescribe a food allergy or an intolerance test for a client inside our practice, because I believe that it's better to address the underlying body system imbalances and then the deeper metaphysical root causes, which then allows you to be able to eat freely and widely without feeling like you have to restrict just to band-aid and manage symptoms. Something that I will say, however, along these lines is if this woman feels like she obviously feels like foods are causing issues, I think, if she's been doing tests around this. So if the symptoms are arising, especially the nausea or digestive issues is arising around eating, after eating, then things that can't be picked up on a food intolerance or allergy test are things like histamine intolerance, salicylate intolerance, oxalate overload, sulfur intolerance. They might be worth looking at to see if they're contributing to gut issues. Now, I don't recommend that. The solution around that isn't to then be histamine free or salicylate free. But it's more data. You're gathering more information around, okay, if there is a histamine issue and one goes on a low histamine diet and those symptoms improve, okay, cool. What's causing the histamine overload in the body? If we work on that, we can bring the histamine levels down, then that person can eat foods that are high, medium, and low in histamine without any issues. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful in terms of just where my brain kind of goes to with this case, this woman who has a lot of digestive issues and she's also done a lot of testing and treatment. There's still some missing pieces from a physical point of view that could be looked at and addressed. Now, she also mentioned having fatigue and brain fog. So the gut does not exist in isolation. It looks like other practitioners have understood this because they have done some additional testing. They have looked at the hormones and other body systems using an organic acid test as well as doing some genetic mutation tests like the MTHFR test. Around that, there's missing information here. So again, I would just want to gather some more data around what hormones were tested. Was it an adrenal stress hormone test? Was it sex hormones? Or was it thyroid hormones? Or was it all three of them? And when you say that you have done a saliva sample or a saliva test, was that just the one saliva sample, or is it looking at hormone markers throughout the day or across the month? That's going to differ depending on what hormones you're looking at. So there could be missing pieces there. And also with the organic acid test, this lady mentioned that she did that test picked up candida and heavy metals or detox issues, but there was no mention about the brain or the mitochondria, which can be tested in that test. The reason why I bring that up is that it's really hard to heal a gut when the body's in fight flight. So if there's adrenal, neuroendocrine issues, so whether that's adrenals, hormones, brain imbalances, even the mitochondria, can put the body into fight flight when that neuroendocrine system is imbalanced or burnt out. And then you're going to have Buckley's trying to heal the gut. It's very hard to heal a gut when you're in fight flight. You need to be in parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. So I would be curious to have a look at what those lab tests actually looked like and to see if those body systems were supported. You have no idea how many new clients we have had start with us inside our Ending Body Burnout method. And when I've looked at their lab tests, I'm like, oh, wow, you've got brain and mitochondrial imbalances. Did your practitioner do anything with that? And half the time they say, oh, that wasn't ever flagged. So some practitioners, a lot of natural practitioners who are accredited in Australia will have the ability to order tests. When you become accredited, you can automatically order tests. Now, there's not a lot of practitioners that have actually done further proper study in functional medicine. So I worked with Dr. Daniel Kalish in the Kalish Institute of Functional Medicine for 3 whole years. That was on top of my 3-year nutritional medicine studies. So that's kind of like 6 years there of clinical support and 3 years where I was learning how to read lab tests and how to create protocols based on those lab tests. And so it's happened quite a lot where clients have come to us, they've already had tests, but the tests just haven't been analyzed correctly. And so therefore those body systems haven't been supported. And that could make a world of difference if they are. Alrighty, so hopefully that wasn't too heavy on like data and details and science, but let's switch gears and look at the metaphysical side of body burnout and these symptoms. So body systems and looking at the physical body, as I said before, is super important. It's not one or the other. It's one and the other. It's the physical and the metaphysical, because you cannot separate the two. We aren't just a physical body. If we were, we'd be dead. We're metaphysical as well. We have energy. We have a spirit. We have emotions, we have an unconscious mind, we have a nervous system and neural pathways that are constantly sending all these like invisible messages. We're not one or the other. Here's the big thing too with the physical body, when someone just tries to heal the physical body, is the unconscious mind is the physical body. And your unconscious mind is it's controlling your physiology. Your unconscious mind is literally controlling your ability to breathe, to secrete hormones, to detox, to secrete stomach acid, to break down foods. So if you're only treating the physical body, that's where people get stuck. And then vice versa too. If you're only having talk therapy or listening to medications, but you've got some serious physical imbalances, it can be really hard to move the needle on that when you're just thinking and talking about it. So we're very big on both, the body and the mind, the physical and the metaphysical. If you think you're the exception to the rule, I'm just going to be so bold as saying you are wrong. I actually had a client book in for a Connect the Dots, which was just like the very first step, initial consult. And she had a lot of gut issues. And look, she probably wasn't someone who had a lot of stress or overwhelm or was running big, busy patterns. But there was enough data there. And I've worked with enough people to know that it's never just physical. Now, she wasn't convinced. She thought that it was just physical, and I'm not here to force anyone to believe what I believe. And if you want to work with us inside the Ending Body Burnout method, one must resonate with this knowledge that you can't separate the physical and the metaphysical. They're one and together, and treating both is going to get great results. Okay. So the metaphysical. Now here's the thing, just honing in again on the physical body. If you came along to our free coaching week that we had a couple of weeks ago, it was all about rewire your brain to end body burnout. I talked quite a bit about this, I think in session 2, that if you only treat the physical body, it can end up being a reductionist approach. Now I know in like the natural health space, whether it's a practitioner or a health client, health seeker, there's a lot of like poo-pooing GP and medical specialists and the whole medical system as being a reductionist approach, where it's just like, oh, you have this issue, go see the gastroenterologist, or you have, it looks like you got some hormone issues, go to the gynecologist. But those specialists aren't seeing how all the parts of your body are interconnected. Now, this same reductionist approach is happening in the natural medicine world as well. Especially I see this in standard functional medicine, naturopathy, and nutrition and dietetics, where it's like, oh, you have this physical issue, or sometimes even you have this mental issue, anxiety, depression. Okay, cool. Well, let's run some labs. you've got imbalances in these body systems. Take the supplements, do the diet, stop stressing, sleep, move. Okay, it's a bit more holistic because we're looking at lifestyle as well, but it's still only looking at the physical body and it's reductionist. And it can only get someone so far with results. When you're only treating the physical body, it's also traumatic. It's traumatic and it's gas-lighty to the deepest part of yourself that wants the best for yourself, that is trying to grab your attention through pain in the body and mind. And when you're trying to squash that out just by running some labs, eating a restrictive diet, taking some supplements, you're gaslighting yourself and you're not listening to the message. And I'll talk a bit more about the message in a secchi. And I say this with love. This is the most loving thing I can say to you if you're suffering and you're just treating the physical part of you. If I kind of like brushed over this or said, oh yeah, like, only maybe for some people it's reductionist, but not everyone. I'm not serving you. I'm not serving you. What people love about what Chris and I do is we are giving you certainty and we're shining the light on your own truth so that you can see the truth of who you are too and why you're receiving these messages. That's what people pay us for. They don't just pay us to run the labs and be all clinical. It's literally looking into the deepest part of you. Okay, let's talk about IBS. So this lady, she probably has had this diagnosis given to her by a doctor. It's like, I don't know, your endoscopies look fine, so you just have IBS. A few weeks ago, again during launch time when we had doors open to Ending Body Burnout Method, I had it created an Instagram reel. It was me at a cafe eating soap and dipping like this beautiful sourdough bread into the soup. And I know that bread and gluten can be a big troublesome thing for a lot of people with gut issues. So, it's kind of like catch your attention. And in the title of the reel, the little caption, it said, why I ask all my clients with chronic gut issues about their childhood. And this is why, my friends. And this is applicable to this case. So this, just to circle back to that first, this lady said, I don't know, I've had these issues for as long as I can remember. I can't pinpoint the exact time that the gut symptoms flared up, but I do know that I had an alcoholic father and life was tense. Growing up in that home was tense. So here's the thing. Studies show that 50 to 74% of those with IBS report having early life trauma. Now that's pretty huge. That is like mind-blowing huge that you cannot separate the physical gut from the baggage underneath the unconscious mind. Now, by the way, early life trauma might be big T trauma. It also might be little t trauma. It doesn't really matter. It's unprocessed trauma or distressing events that have occurred that you didn't have the capacity to deal with and to clear and to process during that time in your life, and it ends up blowing up in your system like a pressure cooker as you're accumulating more and more and more baggage along the way. So why is this number so high? Why is this statistic so high? Well, all of our early life experience predisposed the beliefs we have about ourselves, how we interact with the world, and what we perceive as safe. So if this woman grew up in a volatile environment with an alcoholic father, and I'm sure there would have been uncertainty, instability, maybe neglect, maybe there was even a bit of violence, not really sure, but she grew up in a volatile environment, and highly likely a child in that environment, and any child really, starts to create dysfunctional beliefs about themselves and their existence in this world. What's wrong with my family? Why do I go to my friend's house and their parents seem to be fine and stable? What's wrong with my family? Why is my dad an alcoholic? If he really loved us, if he really loved me, surely he would not be drinking. Why does he treat me so horrible? I'm By the way, I'm just like fictionally padding this out. I don't know if this is this woman's exact case, but I imagine it would be quite similar. So as a little kid, this little kid is experiencing distressing events, tension, stress, overwhelm, and a child is always thinking, what just happened and what does it mean about me? Because kids are egocentric. And that's where dysfunctional, unconscious core beliefs start embedding in your unconscious mind, and it becomes the frame that you perceive yourself and your existence in this world. It absolutely causes your brain and your nervous system to then get stuck in fight, flight. And here's another stat for you. Only 5% of the adult population actually do this deeper work and upgrade from child to adult and let go of these limiting beliefs and clear past distressing events. So there's a lot of sick people with a brain and a nervous system stuck in fight, flight because the unconscious baggage hasn't been identified and cleared. Now, there's a wonderful nerve that runs from the brain to the gut, and it's called the vagus nerve. You've probably heard about it. And it's constantly sending signals back and forth from the gut to the brain. If your brain is stuck in a trauma loop of unsafety and fight, flight, it's absolutely going to affect the function of the gut. And your immune system will suppress, leading to pathogen overgrowth. So this woman who's tried to treat H. pylori and SIBO and candida and parasites, well, if they're still there, that's because the immune system can't create and find homeostasis because the body is stuck in fight, flight, and the immune system isn't working to help keep that in check. Sometimes for some people, the immune system can go in overdrive, and that's where the gut then can start tagging foods as unsafe, or you can start having autoimmune type flare-ups or conditions, or even produce too much histamine in the body. When you're stuck in fight, flight, your digestive organs and motility also switches off. And did you know that stress eats through the gut lining, leading to leaky gut? I learned that quite a few years ago when I first started studying or practicing functional medicine, and I ran a test on a woman that, I don't know, like she had no pathogens. She ate really healthy. She was very stressed out. And the only thing that we could pinpoint to that leaky gut was the amount of stress and the suppressed emotions she was holding on to. Okay, so hopefully this is helping you to paint the picture that just doing a stool test, just doing a SIBO test, just taking some supplements or antibiotics or eating healthy or restrictive is often not enough to heal the gut. In fact, it's not enough because it's not one or the other. It's not physical or metaphysical, it's both. So you must address the fight-flight response first, which includes supporting the adrenals and neurotransmitters, which is why I was highlighting, were those things actually tested or treated based on past testing? And more importantly, reprogramming deeper dysfunctional beliefs that you have about yourself and your body, clearing past trauma. And that includes little t trauma. So look, I would classify growing up with an alcoholic parent as bigger T trauma. Little T trauma could be that time that you got bullied as a kid, or the time that you got told off by your parent, or that time that you were completely humiliated because you wet your pants in public. These little T traumas affect us in just the same way that abuse does. And it's so important to rewire your whole self, your unconscious mind, your brain, your neural pathways, your nervous system back to safety in order to get full resolution of gut issues and also the fatigue and brain fog. About that, so the fact that this woman is also experiencing fatigue and brain fog, and she's running a lot of unresourceful patterns. I'll get to these in a sec because this is something that she highlighted in her case form. These are clear evidences that there is deeper baggage below the surface, and that these need to be brought to the surface, identified and cleared in a really intentional and somatic way. That is essentially the framework that we're teaching our clients to embody. And this is what it means to become a self-healer. With the patterns, so on our case form, so when you fill in the form to submit your case for the podcast, we have a bunch of dysfunctional patterns that are really common that we see in clients when they first start working with us. And so this lady has pretty much ticked almost all of them. I won't read them all, but essentially she's constantly feeling anxious, worried, overwhelmed, stressed out. She's addictive doing, rushing, hurrying, easily getting offensive or defensive. Easily getting offended or defensive, overreactive, catastrophizing, aggressive. She's stuck in victim mentality, struggling to say sorry. She's jealous, feeling bitter to herself and to others, feeling frustrated, feeling a lot of shame and guilt and apathy, and feeling stuck with not progressing in her health or her life, and also procrastination patterns, so getting distracted or putting off, avoiding supporting her health. So there is a lot of patterns. And again, this isn't to be judgy at all. It's literally just to say, hey, here's some more data. Just in the same way that you did a bunch of lab tests and you tried to treat those things, well, these dysfunctional patterns are also data. You ticking and identifying with these is a lab test. And behavior never lies. So every behavior has a belief underneath. So underneath all of these patterns, there is going to be a belief that is upholding all of these patterns. And they're identity-based beliefs as well. So it's not kind of just like, oh, I have a belief that, I don't know, the world is corrupt. It's identity-based beliefs. It's an I am belief. I am not good enough. I am unworthy, worthless, undeserving, unlovable, weak, incapable. There's all sorts of iterations. The impossible journey is to find out yours. And I use the word impossible because it feels really challenging. And it's entirely possible to identify the monster underneath the bed and to reprogram it. We see it with our clients all the time. Okay, now let's just finish this off. So earlier I was talking about the body can scream at you through symptoms, and if you're just treating it physically, it can be gas-lighty and abusive. Now, this is because all these patterns, so these behavioural patterns, these thought patterns, as well as these symptoms, all of these are symptoms. They're all signs, they're all warning signals from something deeper inside of you that needs resolving, that needs letting go of. These deep beliefs that you have, the repressed trauma, the suppressed emotions that keep your body stuck in fight, flight. So, for example, nausea, constipation, digestive issues, fatigue, brain fog, all of these main symptoms that this listener put in her form, these are simply the body's attempt to try and grab your attention, to try and manage stress and overwhelm. And it ends up being like a pressure cooker, all these accumulated past stressors, repressed emotions, beliefs, distressing events, all of it building up in a pressure cooker, and at some point it's going to show up physically. These symptoms aren't mistakes. They're not random ailments. They are signals urging you to acknowledge the toll of unresolved baggage in your unconscious mind and also in your present day stresses and patterns, and how this is affecting your health. So not just for this lady who submitted her case, but for anyone listening, if you're still struggling with chronic health issues, it's not because you haven't found the right diet or the right supplement or the right protocol, or you haven't done the right test. Yes, working with an acute practitioner that can see any missing spots can be very helpful, and it can help you in your journey. That's why I started off with the body systems at the start. But if you haven't fully understood your body's messages, then your body is going to continue sending those messages. So at some point it becomes less about the physical and more about entering into yourself, learning to communicate with yourself, learning to understand what do you really want and who really are you, and upgrading anything that is dysfunctional that's causing sickness. That is, the symptoms will remain. The symptoms will continue screaming at you that you cannot do this anymore. And healing will not happen until the message is heard and acted upon. I personally learnt that, I would say the hard way, the long way. It took me 10 years. I had 3 major body burnout episodes. Each time I thought I'd gotten to the root. The first time was around lifestyle and nutrition. I'm like, yay, I'm better now. I eat healthy. And I was better, but there were definitely still things simmering below the surface. Second time, I had symptoms flare up again and I found functional medicine. I thought I got to the root. Functional medicine calls itself the root cause medicine. Yet this time, the lab tests were great and they identified things that I couldn't work out on my own. Having that data was so good, and really doing like top-notch therapeutical protocols was great, and it helped. For quite a few years, I actually felt pretty good. Again, I could still tell things were simmering beneath the surface, but I was most of the time symptom-free if I bubble wrapped myself from the world. And then the third time, so that was 2020, so really not that long ago, symptoms flared up again. And this time I was just like, oh my gosh, I still haven't got to the root. And that's where I dove into the deep metaphysical healing without this time anything physical supporting my journey. It was all the metaphysical stuff that switched off: histamine intolerance, insomnia, anxiousness, irregular cycle, PMS, acne. So this stuff works. It's not one or the other. It's one and the other. And it's the most beautiful healing journey you will ever be on if you so choose to look at all levels and bodies of yourself. Okay, so I hope this has helped to gain a different perspective on chronic and stubborn gut issues. If you'd like your own case anonymously reviewed on a Connect the Dots episode, just go down to the show notes below and click the application form. And you can send in send in to us your case. And if you want me to personally guide you through a Connect the Dots initial consult, the calendar is now open. We don't always have the calendar open for just this first step in our Ending Body Burnout method, but when the doors are closed to our main program, the calendar is open so you can get started sooner rather than later. I will look at everything that's going on in the same way that I did this episode, but having a conversation with you. Or you can pop your name on the wait list to our Ending Body Burnout method. We'll be opening the doors again in 2025, endish of January. So jump onto the wait list. You'll also get access to exclusive early bird bonuses, and you'll also get first dibs. We pretty much, these past 3 launches, we have reached max capacity by the time we close doors. So if you're on the wait list, you get to put your name down first so you don't miss out, because we do close doors, or will close doors early if we hit max capacity. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for listening. That was fun. And I hope it was worthwhile, both to the beautiful lady who submitted the case, but also to everyone else, to really understand that it takes a holistic approach. It really does, to end your body burnout. Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook.
Have the best day ever.